In the hard-fought Republican presidential race. Last night on The Tonight Show, Jay Leno asked President Obama if he's been following the campaign.
I'm going to wait until everybody's voted off the island.
Really?
Once they narrow it down to one or two, I'll start paying attention.
The latest CBS News New York Times poll shows 70% of voters are paying attention to the race. The poll also shows former House Speaker Newt Gingrich is now in third place behind Herman Cain and Mitt Romney. And Newt Gingrich joins us this morning from Washington. Mr. Speaker, nice to have you with us again.
Well, it's good to be with you.
There have been a number of things that have come out this week from both Republican candidates, also from President Obama. I want to get your take on a couple of things. First of all, news of the day this morning when we talk about student loan debt, which, as you know, is growing in this country, second only to mortgage debt for most Americans. Some proposals out this morning from the president that would push some things along to ease student loan debt. And for many people, they look at debt as a hindrance to being able to spend, which we know drives this economy. How important is tackling student loan debt when it comes to addressing the issue of this economy?
Well, I think it's very important if you're the student who's involved. I think for the general economy it's not. But I also think, frankly, it's time for a serious look at why has higher education become so dramatically more expensive. People talk often about the cost of health care. The fact is the cost of higher education has gone up year after year after year. And there's one projection that by 2014, there will be one administrator or clerk for every teacher on university and college campuses. That's a level of bloated expense that students have to pay off. And maybe they can borrow the money for right now, but as everybody knows, that then means it hangs over them for 10 or 15 years. So I think there's a real issue here to talk about how do we make higher education dramatically less expensive.
And we were learning just this morning the cost of a four-year education at a public college is up 8.3%. Is this still a wise investment, do you think, for folks? Because a number of people carrying student loan debt aren't the young people just out of college. It also includes people who are going back after being laid off in this economy for a new degree to try to find a new job.
Well, one of the steps I've suggested is that we tie retraining to unemployment compensation, so that people who get unemployment compensation also are able to go and get retrained during the same time. There are millions of people today who are getting unemployment. Some 2.5 or 3 million are getting it for 99 weeks. That's long enough they could get an associate degree in the length of time that they're unemployed. So I think there are things we can do to rethink training for adults and education for adults. But I also think the number you just gave should sober everybody up. Why is education going up 8% a year? What are the factors that lead to that? And is it really fair to young people, or for that matter, to middle-aged people who go back to school, to give them an inflated price just because you can borrow the money in the short run? You have to pay that money back, and that becomes a big burden.
There's been a lot of talk about your fellow candidates in this race. We saw a rather explosive, it's also been described as a fiery debate in the last debate. You've been speaking out about some of the animosity, some of the public name calling that's been going on between your fellow candidates, specifically Governors Perry and Romney. What's going on? Why can't people get along?
Well, I don't know how much of that is their consultants advising them and how much of it's real. But you have to have some sense of maturity and some sense of seriousness at a time when we have massive unemployment, huge deficits, serious foreign policy and national security problems. And I felt it hurt everybody to have bickering the way that was going on in that particular debate. I hope it's not going to be repeated. Overall, I think the debates have been very helpful, but I do think the American people deserve to see us act in a responsible and mature way.
Luckily for you, you've got a few more debates coming up, including one with CBS to do that. But when you look at this, have you had any specific conversations with them about the bickering? Because you have been very public in your displeasure with it.
Well, no, I think what I've said in public is pretty clear, and I have a hunch both of them have read it. Everybody's got to do what they think is best in order to try to serve the country. I just think we're in a period, I'm looking forward very much to the one-on-one dialogue that Herman Cain and I are going to have in Houston on November 5th, because I think it'll be a good model of the difference in the approach and the way in which you can actually have a conversation. You can disagree about details, but you don't have to be disagreeable. And I think people are pretty sick of the lack of civility, not just in the debates, but they watch Washington, they watch gridlock, they watch a president who's more comfortable in Leno than he is in trying to govern the country. And I think people are really looking for mature leadership that'll solve some of these problems.
You've had some people, too, are fed up, as we know. We see a lot of this with the Occupy Wall Street protests. Latest CBS New York Times poll finds that 46% of Americans say that their views reflect a sentiment that most Americans share. You have had some pretty outspoken words, though, for the folks behind Occupy Wall Street, that you don't think this is a great move, that you don't really see what their point is. Yet a number of Americans say they're behind it.
Well, look, I think if you say, do you agree you should be angry, I'm with them. We ought to be angry. When you look at, for example, the fix that's been in for some of the big boys, the amount of billions of dollars have been given out. You look at the secrecy of the Federal Reserve. You look at Bernanke being in charge of hundreds of billions of dollars of your money. People have a right to be angry. My question for the Occupy Wall Street group is, what's their message? Frankly, if you look at some of the signs, if you listen to some of the interviews, there's a frightening level of anti-Semitism in some of these gatherings, fundamentally different than the Tea Party. The Tea Party people are studying the Constitution, studying the Declaration of Independence, studying the Federalist Papers, trying to find what made America great. The Occupy Wall Street crowd, frankly, strike me on occasion as taking their anger and turning it into a justification for vandalism and for violence or frankly, a vulgarity that doesn't advance the ball. It doesn't get us into a better future.
Some would say those are the actions of a few. We're going to have to leave it there, sir. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.